Smith Show starts right now.
We got another NBA duo. We got two more superstars teamed up. We got every reason to be optimistic. Right? Houston? Earth to Houston. Westbrook and Harden are together again. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Will Kane filling in for Stephen A. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News. And we had another blockbuster. There can be no rest for the weary. The NBA offseason just keeps coming. Last night, ESPN NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski dropped the bomb that Russell Westbrook had been traded from the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Houston Rockets for Chris Paul, 2 first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps. 2 contracts that were almost seen as immovable were moved for each other. Russell Westbrook is 1 year into a 5-year, $200 million deal, the last of which pays him $47 million. And Chris Paul is basically operating under the same contract, just 1 year further along. So the Thunder get a year's worth of salary cap relief and 2 more picks to their growing arsenal of first-round draft picks. If you want to know what the future looks like, at least in terms of the NBA draft, if you want to know who owns the NBA draft, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder and the New Orleans Pelicans. Might as well just have a 2-man draft with those teams and those general managers, David Griffin and Sam Presti, figuring out who goes where from now into eternity. But the real questions, the real analysis lies in Houston. How does this work? How can it work? Will it work? No. Russell Westbrook and James Harden together. I know everybody wants to get excited. I do. That's what we do, right? That's what we do after a trade. It's easy to see optimism. It's easy to play on paper. You know what it's easy to do? It's easy to play fantasy basketball or NBA Jam and pretend like this is an individual sport. I mean, folks act like this is Federer and Nadal on the same doubles team just because they're great at singles. By the way, they're playing right now at Wimbledon in the Wimbledon semifinals, and Federer's up 1-0 on Rafa Nadal. But basketball's not an individual sport. It's a team sport. It's not simply about talent accumulation. And in the case of Russell Westbrook and James Harden, you've accumulated talent that is almost identical to each other. Russell Westbrook and James Harden are 2 of the most ball-dominant point guards in the NBA. Both have usage rates approaching 35%. They're in the top 4 in the league in isolation play. They're in the top 4 in the league in usage rate. They're in the top 4 in the league in drives to the basket. And they are, when it comes to Russell Westbrook, near the bottom of the league when it comes to three-point shooting, spot-up shooting, catch and shoot. Russell Westbrook shot 29% from 3 last year. Russell Westbrook shot 40% on spot-up jumpers. Russell Westbrook was near the bottom of the league in catch-and-shoot opportunities. Do you know who wasn't? Chris Paul. Chris Paul, abrasive personality, prickly with his teammates, floor general who understands basketball, and Chris Paul who's capable of playing off the ball. Are the Rockets better today than they were yesterday? I know everybody's excited, and I know everybody wants to play NBA Jam, and I know that they're better on paper, and they've accumulated more talent, but I don't know that the Rockets are better at team basketball today than they were yesterday. I don't know that James Harden and Russell Westbrook together are better than James Harden and Chris Paul. And I'm not the only one that understands this problem. I'm not the only one that realizes there's a riddle to be solved and there's a possibility that the riddle is unsolvable. Here's Royce Young, ESPN's NBA reporter on Freddie and Fitzsimmons.
the Rockets were far and away the preferred destination for Russell Westbrook. He wanted to reunite with James Harden, who's one of his close friends in the NBA. And as both those guys really, Freddie, they want to rewrite the narratives about him. And they feel like they could kind of do that together. They both had pretty public postseason failures. And they feel like that why not just get together and see if they can correct some of that stuff.
I appreciate the optimism. I do. I appreciate the desire to change. I appreciate the idea that winning is above all. But how much can Russell Westbrook and James Harden change? Can a tiger really change its stripes? You're talking about two players that are 30 years old and approaching 30 years old. You're talking about guys who've been playing in the NBA for almost a decade. You're talking about guys who've been on their own, running their own team for years now, who've both been the man, who've both been alphas to the extreme. And now I'm supposed to believe just because they want to change a few narratives, they can change who they are? Just because they're finally at the point in their careers where they want to put winning above everything else, that they can change who they are? That just because you put two individuals together, you make a great duo? I got into an argument this morning on First Take with ESPN NBA analyst Ryan Hollins. I said, I can't put these guys right now in the top 5 of NBA duos. I have to respect what people have done, and I have to respect the idea that you must fit together on the basketball court. You can't simply play NBA Jam. You can't simply play fantasy basketball. You can't take the biggest names and just put them side by side and think that's going to work. I just feel like as you walk out today on the big day after news, there's two different things that you fight. I don't want to be the stick in the mud. I don't want to be the turd in the punch bowl. I don't want to be the guy at the after party unwilling to knock a few back. But I do want to be the guy who's willing to see it the way it is. And on the day after a massive trade like this, there's an impulse, an instinct to do two things. To simply be excited, be optimistic, think the sky is the limit because you've got two incredible basketball players together, and to never say a harsh word. Never ask the real question. Never ask, does this work? Ryan Hollins, by the way, is going to be joining us here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Will Kane filling in for Stephen A. in just a few moments. Stephen A. Smith, though, the man himself, was on SportsCenter last night. He came on First Take as well this morning. He said he recognized that this is a riddle. He recognized that this fit is a problem, but he puts it all squarely on one man's shoulders.
My only question mark is whether or not Mike D'Antoni can coach them on that level. We know he can win regular season games. We know he can win a couple of playoff series. But can he coach them in the manner that they need to be coached to get them over the hump? That's the lone question mark about the Houston Rockets after this deal. I see no other question marks to think of.
What I told Stephen A. this morning is that you might be tasking Mike D'Antoni with an impossible task. You might be asking him to solve an unsolvable riddle. I understand the pressure now is on Mike D'Antoni. But can he, not just in his own abilities, but can he, in like the realm of possibility, figure out Russell Westbrook and James Harden together? I fear that the answer is no. And I look across the scope of history. I look across the NBA, and I have trouble finding examples of where you have taken two alphas, two guys this ball dominant, two guys with usage rates this high, and brought them together for the greater good. I have trouble finding the example that Mike D'Antoni can follow. But now it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Joining me in studio here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, Will Kane filling in for Stephen A. is my buddy, ESPN NBA analyst Ryan Hollins. What's up, man?
You know what? All the nonsense. You are my guy, Will. No, seriously. Like beyond this, you're my guy. No matter what, you're my guy. You're my guy, bro.
Thank you.
I just want to say that on record before I lace into you.
Okay.
Oh, good, fair.
All right. Defensive posture engaged. Go.
We spoke earlier on First Take, and it's really sinking in of how disgusted I am with you. You gave possibly the worst tag, the worst line, the worst framing to Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Statistically driven, ball hogs, selfish, not a winner. Arguably the worst things you could ever say to or about a basketball player. And to say that these two guys won't fit, nobody's pretending is going to be perfect. And now you question Mike D'Antoni, and I hear, Stephen A., I hear you, brother. But the reality is, there's a system in place in Houston. Is it a championship system? I'm not saying that. I'm not guaranteeing that. Is it going to be seamless? We're not saying that either. But for you to make the statement that it positively will not work, it's an uphill battle, and that you don't believe these guys are going to or will change, I lose my marbles when I hear that, Will.
All right, so a couple things here. The key about a conversation and the key about debate is to be sure you understand what the other guy is saying. You have failed.
Oh, I heard you.
You have failed step number one. You will win debates on points that I do not make. I did not say that these guys are stat chasers, ball hoggers, and not interested in winning.
You didn't say they were stat chasers. We literally had a segment about their stats.
Listen now. I was asked a question. Will stat chasing be a problem in Houston? And I asked you a series of questions. We can do it again right now. Has Russell Westbrook ever chased stats?
In moments, but that doesn't necessarily apply.
Has James Harden ever chased stats?
I believe in moments.
So why would I believe that two guys who in the past has, by your own admission, chased stats? And you're right about that. We all know it. Anybody that's watched can see that, whether or not that's going for a triple-double in Russell Westbrook's case or chasing a 30-point streak in James Harden's case. Why would I believe that something that has been a problem in the past suddenly go away when you put them together?
See, that's where I have a problem with you. Because you said that it was actually a problem. If I'm not mistaken, your point guard averaging a triple-double. And keep in mind, these are different triple-doubles that Russell Westbrook had. See, in the past, these were 20, 25, 29 points, 10 and 10. This last season, he was comfortable scoring 10 points. Why? Because he sacrificed his offense, his usage, the ball in his hands to make sure that Paul George got his shots, got his looks, made sure that Steven Adams was getting those lobs at the rim. Those are plays that he made for others. In terms of James Harden, we both agreed. I don't want to put you say I mess up everything you say. You said James Harden needed to score, right? Because they were around 12th, 13th in the Western Conference and climbed into the 4th spot. We're talking to Houston Rockets now. So correct me if I'm wrong. You agree he had to score, right?
James Harden?
James Harden.
Yes, he absolutely did at times.
So there's a difference, and I will acknowledge, because I'm not going to say never. If I'm a big man, I'm going to rebound away from a double-double, or I know my teammate is getting there, flirting with a double-double, I'm going to let him get that rebound. If a guy has a 30-point streak going, and there's a difference between me getting fouled and getting free throws or him getting fouled, we know, get this guy the basketball. He's got something going. Within winning, the way you threw it out, challenge these guys' will to win, and you argued that they would be more selfish. I don't know how else to take that statement, Will. There's no open-endedness to say that they are stat-driven, but yet they don't want to win. But yet they're winners.
Sometimes stat-driven or stat-chasing, which that was the question presented to us, will stat-chasing be a problem in Houston? Doesn't occur to the person in the moment, whether or not that be Russell Westbrook or James Harden, as I need one more number, even though I think there are times that actually did enter their minds. It takes the form of, I need to take over. That thing you're describing, do I need to get the points? Should I grab the rebound? It's the alpha sense of, I'm the one that must take over. Now you have two guys on one team who both have the mindset of, now I must take over. Now, am I going to be right that that is a potential problem? First of all, I did not condemn them to the bottom of the Western Conference. What I did is say, I don't know that this adds up to contention for an NBA title. I don't know that this adds up to a top 5 duo in the NBA. Now, I want to tell you a quick little story, okay? Ryan Hollins here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Will Kane filling in.
You want to do your duo list over a little bit?
No, I don't. I want to talk to you about a story I have to tell you. Here's the story I have to tell you. couple years ago, I was on First Take, all right?
Okay.
And the Houston Rockets had just pulled off a sign and trade for Chris Paul from the Los Angeles Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone did the exact same thing then that they were doing today. They were saying, this is incredible. This is two superstars on the same team. What a wonderful accumulation of talent. Watch what happens with the Rockets. And I said, how are they going to work out who handles the ball? How is this thing going to fit together? I asked a lot of the same questions then about that pairing that I'm asking today about Russell Westbrook. Hold on. In the meantime,
You're doing more than asking questions, bro.
The Rockets go.
You're doing more than asking questions.
In the meantime,
you're doing more than asking questions.
In the meantime, the Rockets make it to the Western Conference Finals, make it to the Western Conference Semifinals, lose out twice, and ultimately figure out that Chris Paul and James Harden not just can't play together, don't want to play together. The problems that I brought up,
That's wrong, bro.
Years ago.
I can't let you just say that.
You're going to get a chance to correct
leave that
it.
statement like
You're
that.
gonna
Go
get
ahead.
a chance to
Go
correct
ahead.
it. The problems that I pointed out a year ago took a moment, took a minute, but ultimately, as time passed, came true. Today, you're super excited about Russell Westbrook and James Harden.
Absolutely.
2 or 3 years from now, you're going to be saying the things that I'm saying today and acting like you came up with the ideas.
So let me lay this out. Because I had the same concerns, but Chris Paul and James Harden overexceeded what I thought, what I would have seen. My questions were for Chris Paul to be able to score the basketball. Would he be able to score and play make at a high enough clip for Houston to be successful? In all reality, when Chris Paul went out, and we all acknowledge, they were a game short of being NBA champs. They're a game short of beating the greatest basketball team that we had ever seen play the game. I'm talking the Golden State Warriors. So am I going to look back and say you came a game short of winning, that season or that duo or that tandem was a failure? They overexceeded. This last year, Chris Paul, after he put his body on the line, Father Time catches up, cannot play at the same clip. Then excuses mixed with lack of action snowballs to the fact where you had to move on from Chris Paul. And I guarantee if Chris Paul had his exact same spats, but he played at the level of basketball that he played the year before and the year prior, he wouldn't be moved. He would not be traded. But if, and only if, Russell Westbrook comes available and Chris Paul can't play the same basketball, now he's moved, Will. So I do not agree with you. If anything, for me, they overexceeded expectations. And as a former player, I can't call that a failure when you lost to the eventual champs. It was a successful pairing, and they found a way to make it work.
Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Will Kane filling in for Stephen A., hanging out with ESPN NBA analyst Ryan Hollins, talking about the Russell Westbrook trade to the Houston Rockets. Does it work? Will it fit? Let me run a couple of things by you, okay? Seriously.
So you admit you're wrong. Is that what you admit you're wrong?
No.
Slightly.
You think you're going to slip in a W?
I'm not slipping it in. You're wrong.
In between my thoughts? Let me ask you a couple questions.
What?
Who's a better three-point shooter, Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook?
Chris Paul.
Who's a better catch and shoot option on the floor, Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook?
Chris Paul.
Who's a better fit next to James Harden, Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook?
Russell Westbrook.
I'm sorry. How did one and one
It's
add
more
up
than
to
that.
three?
It's not black and white. You're not going to make it about one
I
thing.
guess I had lost on the math. The math was adding up, and you got to three.
Let me give you an element.
What's one? You said one. I said, what's 1 + 1? You said 3.
Well, you break down every sport in the NBA, and you do a heck of a job at it. Last year, not only did I color commentate, analyze games, break down films, break down every single team in the NBA, I had to see how James Harden was doing the impossible. We've never seen a jump shooter score points, and not just points, wins consistently, back to back to back to back. And one thing James Harden was so intelligent at, and I would even phrase it as he cracked the code of basketball. He figured it out. He had to literally go from playing at this hellish pace that the Houston Rockets ran at, and he had to pace himself. He had to slow himself down. And if you actually tracked it, I believe he was the slowest moving, he and LeBron James, basketball players in the entire NBA. What does that mean? He needed a break. He could not do it all himself. And there are a lot of times in the regular season, Chris Paul was missing, and when he got back, was not quite Chris
Ryan,
Paul.
You're being charitable. That's the thing.
Hold on. Well, I'm going to tell you, I throw that in there. Now I have a guy I can take turns with, and now I can spot up and shoot while he attacks the rim. And I guarantee one thing. In a D'Antoni system, keep in word, system, everything, I know what I'm getting. Russell Westbrook will shoot the basketball better. It won't be as hectic.
You're being optimistic. You're being charitable. If I were being mean, I would say you're being an apologist. Why is James Harden one of the slowest on the floor? One of the reasons is because he doesn't move when he doesn't have the ball. He doesn't participate in the offense when he's not running the offense. You know it's a fact.
Let me ask you something.
No, you can explain it away as though he's tired, or you can explain it as that
himself.
he is disengaged when he's not running
let me
it.
ask you
now
something,
you
though.
brought a guy in who must be running the offense. Westbrook cannot be the guy off the ball. He does not shoot well enough to be the guy off the ball.
Let me ask you something.
I would. Okay, go ahead. Ask me something.
Who's going to create shots for him?
For who?
James Harden.
Most of the time, James Harden creates his own shot.
But let's just say, because he's incredibly
You
intelligent.
gave it
James
this morning.
Harden.
Who led the league?
Hold on.
Who led the league in unassisted baskets?
That's not
this
even
year?
what I'm saying.
But
Listen,
who was it?
It was James Harden.
Oh.
But why? Who else was going to create a shot for him?
Not one of the greatest point guards of the last
He
15
missed
years.
half the season and he couldn't move the same. Who else was going to create a shot for him?
Here's the funny
No,
thing.
answer it.
We're running out of time.
I'm waiting.
Let me ask you a
Because
question.
you can't.
Here's the thing. This is the way it works. This is the way it rolls. Everybody wakes up. They're super excited. They think you're being a hater. They think you're doubting them.
You kind of are.
Right.
You really are.
Or I tell the truth when everybody else wants to be an apologist. And in a couple of years,
Who's an apologist?
maybe even a couple of months, maybe Kobe Bryant will say it again. Kobe Bryant's already said you don't win basketball that way. People have questioned whether or not you can win playing next to Russell Westbrook. Tim Legler has been on the Will Kane show, and he has said, I question whether or not Russell Westbrook can take a secondary role. What I am saying today, others will say down the road. And in some cases, other NBA players have already said. This is how the truth lands in many people's laps. As a haterism, but I can't help you with reality. You have to adjust to it. It's not adjusted to you.
My truth that a lot of people don't look at, Russell Westbrook has been too free in Oklahoma City. He had the ball in his hands. He did whatever he wanted. Fair to say, right? Billy Donovan is a heck of a coach, but he wasn't a coach for the Thunder. I'm just saying, bro. And a lot of the NBA is a players' league is relating to the players. So I'm not throwing Billy under the bus, but Billy didn't fit with Russ. And I believe D'Antoni's system, maybe not his personality, will be better.
All right, that's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. He's Ryan Hollins, our ESPN NBA analyst. I'm Will Kane, filling in for Stephen A. today. One of the arguments that Ryan and I got into today is that I said I don't believe that Russell Westbrook and James Harden, as we stand here today, are a top 5 duo in the NBA. Ryan did not like that.
Yeah, make sure you name your 5, 6, and 7 too, all right?
I'll do it. Who are the top 5 duos in the NBA? How do Westbrook and Harden fit in? That's coming up on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Kane. Hey, when you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes. You want an efficient way to get a short list of qualified candidates. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring. Post a job today at Indeed.com/hire. Search for greatness. Search Indeed. How high, without having played a single minute, do Westbrook and Harden climb on the top duos in NBA? It's coming up on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Kane.
This show and all of ESPN is streaming live on the ESPN app. Now with ESPN Plus, where you get more ESPN. Download the ESPN app today and take ESPN everywhere.